If I could just hold you.
Wow.
Tonight.
She stealthed that in there.
Well, she's being a little
Cheeky.
cheeky at the end, a little gregarious.
Cheeky. A little gregarious.
A little gregarious is a word. Wow.
Yeah.
That was cute.
Yeah. Live from the studio.
Wow, so coy.
Jimmy Selesky.
I'm Eric Glazer. And tonight we got Elizabeth Norman on the couch.
Hello.
Yeah. We just all sang 1,000 Miles as the intro. That'll get us DMCA stricken real quick.
Yeah.
Demonetized.
At this point, we're just purposely trying to get removed from YouTube.
Yeah.
We're doing everything in our
Knock
power.
me off.
Yeah.
Take me out.
I released a clip this past week from the podcast. And somebody just commented on the clip and said, "Clip makes me not want to watch the podcast."
It's the opposite of what the clip is supposed
Like,
to
wow.
do.
Wow.
This had the complete adverse effect.
Oh my gosh.
Almost didn't. I didn't reply to
Advertising more like adverse-tising, because that is not the thing I wanted from you. I didn't want this
Yeah,
reaction.
it was really unfortunate. It was really unfortunate. We did, however,
Zang.
have another comment this week
Oh,
from our boy
interaction.
Trevor Job. Shouts out Trevor Job. I don't know
Trevor?
if your whole name is a typo or
Trevor Job.
Trevor Job?
I'm sorry.
Trevor Job?
it's spelled TREBOR space Job. And like he capitalized it too, so it's like
Those
he
are
meant
two
it.
Names.
He took time to hit like the shift.
How's Job spelled?
Well, in the Bible it's spelled like job.
Okay.
But Trevor spells it Jobe.
Okay.
I don't remember that part of the
Trevor
Bible.
Jobby.
And these are the
So
comments.
it's either Trevor Job or Trevor Job.
or Joby.
Or Joby.
Joby. I'm gonna go Trevor Job.
Okay.
And Trevor commented on episode 308, Grok Blocked with Alex
yeah.
and
And
Jordan
Jordan
Levine.
True.
And these are the comments you live for, because I don't know.
I'm waiting for it to just be like, nice.
Pretty cool, dude. Nice. Keep going.
Laughing
Live
emoji.
for this.
This is the best that's ever happened to me.
No, I'm pretty sure he's been
nice.
commenting or like been watching, and I think he subscribed back when we released the Danny Mullen thing. I think he was a Brandon Buckingham fan.
Okay, nice,
And he
nice.
watched that episode, and I think he commented on that episode. Was like, "Yo, you guys are like actually really enjoyable to listen to. You just earned a subscription." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And every now and then he'll actually comment. And most recently,
what we
13
like
hours
to
ago,
see.
he commented and said,
Good work, boys. You've just earned yourself one comment.
He says, and I quote, "I really got into the talk of card shuffling, but I have to bring up a counter to Jimmy's rant. If 100 decks were being shuffled every second, the odds of any one deck matching another would consistently drop as new combinations were formed. The only way your math/rant holds up is if you're referring to one specific order of cards being matched rather than any repeated order of cards. Keep up the good content. I always love the ones that delve into conspiracies. Thanks for the enjoyable listening that helps me get through factory work."
Hey,
That's a great comment.
That's a great comment. We got
That's
factory
really-
workers listening to
A
us.
factory worker who wants to let you know that you don't have as strong of a grasp on probability as you think you do. It's like, let me just like recap. Probably
So-
like 9th grade math class.
to provide context, we touched upon this in the episode, and I caused quite a rift apparently when I raised this reality phenomenon. What do I have here in my hands? It's 52 cards, a couple jokers, maybe it's 54, and like an instruction card to tell you how to play cards if you don't know. So 55, but let's go 52. Did you know that every time you thoroughly shuffle a deck of cards, it's pretty much a guarantee that is the first time that exact order of cards has ever existed, ever.
Oh, for real? What? Dude, I can hear Trevor just fucking fuming at the factory.
But
He's just getting revved up already, just waiting to hear.
Again with the fucking cards.
I already explained
I
it to you
taught
in a
you.
really considerate comment. I laid it out.
there are approximately 8.6 times 10 to the 67 possible combinations of 52 cards. It's a big number. All right. The way you figure that out is 52 factorial. 52 times 51
Right.
times 50
Yeah.
times 40, all the way down to 1. Now, Trevor's point was, I was saying that every deck of cards that you shuffle, it has a 1 in that number chance, 1 in 8 buggle-jillion chance of happening.
Okay.
And he said, well, because I also used the example, because Eric said, well, I feel like something or other. And then
Yeah,
I
he had
said,
a
well,
different
even if
feeling.
we were shuffling cards 100 times a second, if you took every casino, every game of poker being played around the world, if there were 100 new decks of cards being shuffled every second, since cards were invented, which I looked up today, is the late 15th century, which for anybody who's not, I always hate how we do the centuries because the 15th century is the
actually
1400s.
1400s,
I hate
yeah.
that.
So that's like very late medieval, early Renaissance.
yeah, like right before Columbus got here. They were playing like the first
like
deck of cards.
Taroko, like that. Kind
Yeah.
Of, yeah. Mhm.
So 550 years, let's say. 550 years at 100 times per second, you're getting a new hand. I did the math on that. How many decks of cards would you have shuffled since 1473 if you were doing 100 decks per second? For 550 years, and
mean,
your
I'm not
answer
even gonna-
is
Yeah.
the number is right. We're gonna
Eat your
see
bajillion.
who's closer. Liz, you gonna go
I have
first?
no idea.
Come on, just take a guess.
I already forgot every number you said.
100 per second for 550
Jimmy, you telling
years.
me again isn't
Okay.
gonna make it work.
So 550 times 365 times
24
24 times
60 times 60.
60 times
Nothing.
100, right?
times 1. Oh shit.
Did you do the math wrong?
Trevor Job, you son of a gun.
God
You
damn
caught
it!
me again.
Oh, Trevor, you dirty dog. God damn it. All right. So, my math
So
was
just
off
say your
by
number by 100.
Yeah, my math is off by a magnitude of 100. Which is
in the scheme of all numbers, infinitesimal.
Just add 2 zeros at the end.
yeah, just add 2 0 or subtract 2 zeros from it, or add what you're talking about. So my point still stands. My math was slightly off here, but my point being was that since 1473, if we were doing 100 new decks of cards per second, there would be approximately 1.7 trillion decks of cards, unique decks of cards. Let's say every single one of them was the first one ever.
So let's say
What?
it's 17 trillion then, right?
Well, I originally gave him the number 17.3 billion. So I just
Okay.
did the math before I
Hell
said
yeah.
it. So 1.7 trillion is the new number, which changes things a little bit. But 1.7 trillion is 1.7 times 10 to the 12. Remember, there's 8.6 times 10 to the power of 67 possible combinations. So in reality, if you're saying that with each new combination of cards, I can't believe I fucked up the math on this on the comment too. That's crazy.
Listen,
gosh.
but also
I have no
I'm
idea
just,
what
I
the
like
hell you're
I love that you
talking
did
about.
homework just to prove us wrong.
I had to, man. I mean, it's not to prove anybody. It was more so I did homework to prove myself right.
And Trevor Job and me wrong.
Well, sure. That's the side effect of me being right, of course, but that's not what I was aiming for. Obviously not. So the actual number, the percentage chance after 550 years of 100 decks of cards per second, assuming every single one of them so far has been a unique arrangement, the actual percentage of 1.7 trillion that have already existed out of the 8.6 buggle-jillion that could exist is about 0.0 and then about 55 more zeros, 2% chance that when you shuffle a deck of cards, that it will be one that has already existed in the history of decks of cards. Now, he is correct in his point that that number does gradually rise because with every new combination that you bring into existence, that's one more that you could possibly get next time. So the probability of getting one that already existed is constantly raising all the time. But after 550 years,
I know, but you got to think about this now. I'm sorry to interject, but we were just talking about casinos and people playing cards. You got to think. There's astrology people using this to do tarot readings too.
Yes.
So now you got to like double that by a buggajillion, probably.
Buggajillion. I mean, that's a strong case for a buggajillion. Oh, I was gonna live edit the comment on there. I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have the focus for that. Well, I mean, dude, look, 100 per second for the past 550 feet. That's a pretty generous estimate, is it? I'm being I'm pretty lenient there because I'm working off that 100 now because we have like casinos and automated online poker and shit. But like in reality, were they really doing 100 per second in 1603? Probably not.
Probably not.
There's probably like 14 games of poker going on in the world. You know? Yeah. So we're going to average it out and say 100 per second. And that includes, yes, tarot readings, whatever I just did just now. I don't think I shuffled it purposefully because I didn't want to add to that probability. Because every time I shuffle a deck of cards...
It hurts your argument.
It hurts my argument. I'm never shuffling again. But yes, I was going to say that I didn't do my comment justice, but since I was wrong in my comment, I could have said anything and been more right here. So I guess we'll say we did our comment justice. But thank you, Trevor Job. Thank you for
holding me accountable.
Holding me accountable, but also giving me the opportunity to prove not that you are wrong, but that I am right.
That we're both wrong.
Some people
until I edit the comment.
More wrong than others. And surely until I get a chance after recording to edit my comment, you are technically 100 times more wrong or right than you will be once I edit my comment. But even though you are 100 times more right now than you will be once I edit the comment, it's not a drop in the bucket, man. It's not even a drop in the bucket. So this is just the vastness of the universe. And I appreciate that somebody at a factory just fucking listening going like, you know what? That's fucking bullshit.
That's great. It's good to know.
I love that. I do the same shit.
I hope the camera picked up Eric spitting out his drink.
I don't think it did.
Getting it splashed all over his glasses.
Yeah. Oof. I don't know how we're going to top that for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, I just opened up with it. I didn't know.
It's just been really weighing on my mind.
It has. Well, it's what I was working on right before I got here.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I've been spending all day. Mondays are like my off day, kind of, besides the podcast.
Yeah.
Which, if you're a loser like me, you consider the podcast a thing. So like it's like that doesn't count as an off day if I do the podcast. No, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Because for me, work just sometimes doesn't make me any money. Sometimes work loses me money. And so therefore, I never have a day off because I'm always at least losing money.
Right.
Every day is a day at the job, clocking in at the plant. But I was like working on Monday. I zoned out. I woke up late today. I woke up at like noon, unfortunately.
Yeah, lucky.
And, and then I spent the next, I guess, 7.5 hours straight, not exaggerating, working on my little fucking math problems and shit. 7.5 hours.
You went to school for a day.
Didn't eat.
And after school.
Didn't turn on the TV. Didn't really do anything but that. First, I didn't even realize it was that late
all day.
Until I looked at the clock and it was 7:30, and I was still working on it. And I texted her, I'd be like, it's more like 8.
Yeah.
I've only had 7.5 hours straight of coffee and
math.
And now it's like weird to delve back into. I don't know. It was weird. Yeah. There's a certain point where you start to wonder, like, was
it only card math, or were you doing other?
Like, oh no, I spent the last 30 minutes doing the card math. I was doing sports math the first 7 hours. Yeah. Just because I caught that comment late in the game, and it kind of I got excited because like, nice, a new math problem. I'll do this instead. So it was like really cool.
Extra credit.
It was like really cool.
And kids think that they're never going to use it again, and they don't know how much fun you'll have.
It's like my version of Sudoku, I would say. Yeah. It's like a puzzle.
It's good.
I was wrong in like every single thing I was doing. Like I would get to the end, and then the answer would be completely. Here's the thing: people probably assume that if I'm working on math 7.5 hours a day, that I'm like good at it.
Yeah. Or that you're like
Not necessarily true.
building the next like
Well,
spaceship or something.
I mean, it's probably good for your brain just to try, right? Like,
It is good for my brain, I think. And maybe one day I'll be
think
right.
so.
Maybe one day my math will be correct.
building it up, man.
It's amazing how much math you got to do just to be almost still wrong. It's unfortunate. But
Yeah, you're like, I'm wrong and I worked for it. Like, I didn't even just guess and be wrong. I could have just started with just a number.
there's a lot of ways to be wrong,
But I
and
worked
most,
all the way through it.
Most don't take
Yeah.
this amount of time.
No, that's true.
So that was cool. What did you guys do this weekend? What did you guys do?
Weekend.
Anything cool?
This weekend.
We went on a walk yesterday at
We
Loch
went on a
Raven.
walk.
Went down the fire trail and found some black raspberries.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty tasty. Found some wild basil. And then on our way back, we like stopped for a second because we saw this little baby deer walking towards us. And it didn't see us until it was like 10 feet away.
Wow.
So it got like super close. It was really cute, dude.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
And then it just got kind of stuck for like a good 3 minutes because
Yeah.
it didn't know what to do. They just kept like looking at us.
That's probably where the expression "deer in the headlights"
I mean,
come from.
really.
I
Yeah.
know.
They kind of get frozen up.
Very stereotypical. You want to look at that deer and be like, "Dude, don't you know you're just another statistic." Every time you do something like that, you're just another
You're
statistic.
just confirming what everyone thought
Confirmation
you would
bias.
do.
But
It was very cute.
yeah, we had to go to Father's Day shit. You know, Father's Day was yesterday.
Yeah.
So
So we went to
we had some plans. We had to get out of there. So I just, start walking towards it and it skedaddled off.
Yeah.
But it was like still not used to its body. So it was like, it's like seeing a little puppy try to like scram off. It was funny.
How big of a deal is Father's Day in your circles?
My circles. I don't
You're
know.
like your life, like how, like obviously, I would say for most people, Mother's Day is more important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like it's like the same shit.
Kind of, but
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I think
Kind of like
Mother's Day
Easter,
is
but just for your
often
mom or your dad.
more important. I kind of feel like Mother's Day feels like the original one, and
Yeah.
Father's Day feels like the one would be like, well, you got to let Dad
Yeah,
have one too.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like it feels more like a little bit of an add-on.
it seems it's like a consolation prize. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we got to have this one. It doesn't feel as real to me. I remember one time, Dom and I we were sitting at dinner with our parents. Dom told me this story the other night. I forgot, and I said this, and we were planning something, and Dom was like, "Oh, well, that's Mother's Day, so we can't do that." And then we were like trying to work out a different month. He was like, "Well, when's Father's Day?" And I was just like, "Who cares?"
Right.
And my dad just started laughing because it's true. Who gives a shit? I didn't even know it was Father's Day yesterday. I feel weird giving my dad a gift. We just don't have that.
I just got him a card, and then we texted as well, and then I joked around in the text. And I don't think he liked that.
Oh, see, I
He
couldn't
goes-
imagine giving my father a card. I'd never
Yeah.
hear the end of it.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, no, we got my dad, presents. And then we picked up like dinner for everyone. But yeah, I mean, I got my dad a security camera.
A security camera?
I feel like that's a very
That
good
is
gift
such
for
a dad
Dad gift.
Yeah. I got him like solar lights that are like motion sensitive for Christmas, and he like never stopped talking about them.
Loved it.
He loved them.
Yeah, that is weird because a lot of dad gifts are just like functional stuff to help him just do more work and
Yeah.
stuff, like be more efficient at work.
Yeah. Here's some more like forks for the grill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better go make some burgers.
Better get to work.
Yeah, my mom still to this day just buys my dad like work clothes for every holiday.
Which is funny
Even though he
because he
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Like she got him like
retired.
3 Joseph A. Bank shirts yesterday. I'm like, where is he wearing these?
Yeah.
You guys don't go
Laying
to
in bed
that
watching
many
TV.
events. Yeah.
Maybe she wants him to like elevate to that like next level of dad where you start like walking around the house dressed up. I mean like the 1950s dad where they're like just like it's like a Sunday day off and they're like wearing like a sweater with a
Yeah,
collared
when
shirt
everyone
under.
like wore a suit to the factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trevor, what do you wear to the family?
Yeah, hit us up. But yeah, no. It's not like a, super important holiday though.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
like.
I mean, my dad's on vacation, so
Oh, where's he at?
Germany.
Oh shit. That's your homeland, correct? No?
No, he just likes it a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, their family just really likes Germany.
We're not German.
Okay. Joe just went to Spain.
Nice.
And I've been having a real
cool.
hankering to go to Europe recently.
Yeah.
Been like really,
Yeah, Europe's cool.
into. You guys just got back. You guys were in Germany together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
last
a year
year?
ago. Hmm.
Yeah, around this time last year.
Yep.
Yeah, Germany, and then a little stint in Ireland on the way back.
Yep.
Which I kind of want to go back to Ireland. Ireland was
know.
sick.
Well, you liked Germany too, but I think you just kind of felt a little self-conscious because you couldn't speak German.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you should?
I think for the
Just
next
felt
time
bad
I go,
about it.
I feel like I should at least have a better, at least
Basic
understanding or
yeah.
remedial knowledge.
Yeah, that's a thing that I get a lot with like Greece and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I feel self-conscious that I'm not like Greek enough. You know?
I mean, luckily, you speak great German.
Yeah.
Do you
Your
really?
family does, so like it wasn't an issue. But like, I mean, there's still weird things over there where like some people would only try to talk to me,
Right.
and I'm like, I can't speak German.
Right.
You're gonna have to talk to the
woman.
woman. Sorry.
No way.
Yeah.
Aren't they pretty progressive over there? I thought.
I mean, yeah, to a certain degree, but I think like for some stuff still they just like assume, especially if it's like men talking to you and trying to give you directions or asking you questions or things, they just like direct it to the man first.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eric doesn't speak any German. So sometimes I wouldn't even be paying attention. He'd be like, hey, like
Yeah.
someone tried to talk to me and I don't know what's going on. But yeah.
I mean, I definitely picked up on stuff
Yeah.
while I was over there. And I feel like that's how I learned best too, just like in it. But I wasn't in it long enough for
Right,
it
to
to
be
actually
like-
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bad time to try to start learning at that point. I watched this movie yesterday. Have you guys ever seen a movie called Being John Malkovich?
Yes.
That's one of your favorite movies.
Really?
I think,
What?
right? Or no, maybe it's one of Joey's favorite
She
movies.
changes her favorites
Yeah.
a lot. Her favorite song coming in today was 1,000 Miles. And it quickly changed.
You just heard it on the radio. It was playing when we drove in.
My AI
So it was in
DJ
our
put it
head.
on.
So you like it, but it's not your favorite movie.
Yeah, I like it fine.
It was very quirky, like very there's a style of late 90s that's like very strange. I found it fast, but it made me have like a weird dream last night. I don't know, of all the things that I took away from the movie, I always go through the day and I try to figure out what my dream is going to be that night, because usually my dream will be something relevant to something that happened that day, but it's always like the dumbest possible thing. Like you would think, like you watch a movie. So I just watched it last night. I'm very familiar with it. It's basically like this guy finds like a portal where he's now able to like enter into like John Malkovich's head and like
Right.
experience life. I didn't even know who John Malkovich was. I thought he was a made up guy until
He's a famous actor.
and then I realized he's a famous actor, and apparently he's very good. And I watched. I was like, this guy is good. 'Cause he was like really good at like pretending to be John Cusack when he was inside his body and stuff like that. But of all things that my dream was, my dream was just that I was balding, which is like the most random thing
To take
you know?
away from all of that.
To take
you're
away
like,
from all of it, I just had a dream that I was like combing my hair and I noticed a bald spot, and that was the plot for about 2 hours of my night last night. 2 hours of my night was dominated.
Just
You
like
just had your quarter
very
life crisis in a
slowly
dream.
discovering.
And I always try to be like, I always try to be like, well, you can't be vain. You can't like place that much value on that. Whenever my friends talk about like they think they're going bald, I'm like, get over it, dude. People go bald, whatever.
Yeah.
But I did not take it well.
For all the advice
Yeah, it's
I've
very
given,
easy to
I've
say
found
that with great hair.
when it happened to me, I was like a little bit like, oh, I would be really mad if someone told me to just chill out.
I'm going to go to like Bald's Anonymous tomorrow. Be like, guys, I understand now. For 2 hours last night in my subconscious.
I dreamed I was bald. And then I woke up and you're living your nightmare.
I woke up and I was just like, oh, thank God. And I think it's stuck in my subconscious because now I'm still wearing a hat today.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
Little things like this.
Yeah, it was weird. I was combing it and I had like this weird like pattern. And I also at some point, I remember this is a weird thing. I wanted a mustache. And so I just like took my bangs and I just pushed them down in my and then but not like I like pushed them down and like it was like I just slid the whole thing and now all of a sudden my bangs are on my
right here.
That is insane.
funny.
That's some weird dream shit, dude.
Yeah.
And you think
that
those
shit would never happen in real life, dude.
not even a chance.
Close, man.
And you
wish
think that would be the moment
in my dreams.
in my dreams
it happens.
You
Oh
think
my
like
gosh.
you watch Inception, they have all these things that are like not like he spins like a top, and if the top's going too long, he's like, I'm dreaming. You would think that at some point in my dream, I would have been like, wait a second.
Wait a second, I just pushed
I
my
don't have
bangs into a
bangs on
mustache.
my lip.
But nothing seemed out of the ordinary for me when that happened.
You're like, oh yeah, this is one of my skills.
It's okay. I'm just balding.
But at least my lip will be warm.
This is part of my male pattern.
That's cool. That's cool. So that's topic number 2.
Yeah, so you didn't do anything for Father's Day yesterday?
I mean, well,
Dude, I'm about to have to text your dad Happy Father's Day. This
he
is
came out. They
crazy.
came out to Nacho Mama's yesterday when I was
Okay.
playing. They kind of like I play a lot, so like a lot of times like my family will just come to a gig, and then I can be like, "Look, I did something for Father's Day," when really I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't say anything
Just
to
a
him.
happy coincidence of the
He was-
schedule.
I didn't
Yeah.
even talk to him.
He was like, I sat next to him, and he was like explaining some conspiracy about something, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna listen to this." That's your Father's Day.
That's your
present.
Father's Day present.
I'm going to entertain this. Let's see.
What'd you do on Saturday then?
Oh, dude, Saturday I played like a private party out
Oh
in Owings
yeah,
Mills.
the one that you're like, no one can come to this.
The one that I humble bragged about.
Yeah.
I like unironically was like, dude, look at me.
I hate it when people post private shows, and yet here I am posting about my private show.
Yeah, dude. I had one where, more bragging about private shows. I had one that was getting booked for this past Friday, and they were like, yeah, man. And then I got this fortune on my fortune cookie that said, that night I got Chinese food. And first thing I learned was that apparently one serving size of fortune cookie is 6 cookies. Didn't realize that. So I didn't get 6. I got 2. And the fortune said, you'll be fine as long as you don't sign up for anything new. And I was like, that's a weird
Thing to
fucking
say.
fortune to get. Because now every single thing that I get, I'm like, should I do this? I don't know.
Yeah.
Towson Best says probably not.
Ooh.
And I'd already been kind of feeling weird. Like I wasn't sure how this was going to go through. It was one of those things where like it was just these dudes that I met like on the dock at Ampersea that were like, let me get your card. And they were like doing like a boat party the next week. And so I was lining up and I was on the fence. And then later that day, he texted me and said, party's off. And then an article of how somebody just crashed into their boat, like a newspaper article.
Oh my God.
Somebody just, their boat
Oh my
sunk.
goodness.
Jesus
like,
Damn,
wow.
capsized.
Towson Best kind of nailed it.
They were right.
They were right.
They knew.
Was-
And what
was
are
in
the
second?
odds on that? It's time for cookie math.
The second cookie. I should be getting served 6 fortunes.
Yeah, you need 4 more
Yeah, you
fortunes
need
to
4
complete the
more.
riddle.
Yeah, I know.
Figure out what.
I don't remember
how
what the
your week's
second
gonna
was.
go. Yeah.
I used to eat my fortunes, and I don't eat them anymore. Because now I can't remember them. So instead, I just kind of just save them.
Yeah.
But I don't save them in any particular way. I just leave them wherever I found them. And now, if you go to my house, there's like fortunes everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Nice.
I don't know. I never pay attention to that shit, to be honest. I did want to talk about something. This is the only real topic that I had. Because I'm what you call prepared.
Ooh.
Did we ever wind up watching? I meant to do this on Matt's podcast. I watched a video on YouTube. This is another topic. This isn't the topic that I wanted to do. It's the topic that you deserve. I watched a video on artificial intelligence, world's most handsome man by country.
No.
I pulled that up.
Pull
I
that
find it
up, yeah.
Fascinating.
We like to see this.
We gotta see. Let's see.
Yeah, I thought you were going to bring up the, I think we talked about it on Sam's podcast, though.
Which one?
But the one thing in like Vegas where the
Oh,
family
yeah,
was
yeah,
recording the aliens
Oh
in their
yeah, yeah,
backyard.
yeah.
But then in the video, I couldn't see anything. I don't know if anyone saw anything on the podcast. But then the weird thing now is that family's missing.
Is it? Are they really?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
What do they call it? Spirited Away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lean towards that's not a real story. And I'm only going to lean towards that being not a real story because there's two possibilities. Because goes back to what we discussed on Sam's podcast about controlled disinformation. I think that sometimes these things are purposefully done where they take the most uncredible, I guess it's not incredible, uncredible source. And they make them
Like
the face of the opposition.
least credible source.
The least credible source. And they make them the face of the discussion. And so they basically go, okay, here's the thing that we don't want people to believe. For whatever reason, and I never quite understood why. Apparently the government really doesn't want us to think there's aliens and UFOs and shit. So let's run with that. Let's say that is true. The government does not want us to know aliens exist. One of the CIA psyop ways they could do that is by being like, and you know what we'll do? We'll propagate all the dumbest seeming people as all the proponents of this thing so that whenever people see this argument, they associate it with the dumbest possible people.
Yeah, dumb people who are like quote unquote crazy, like anyone who has like a mental illness, people with like histories of like drug use and other things like that. Anything where it's like it seems like it's an unreliable source.
Yeah.
Threes and below.
like the Uggos only.
Uggos only, and then
No.
make all the hot people tell you about,
Right.
the stuff they
All
want
the
to push.
AI men are telling you like, no, aliens do not exist.
That's global warming.
It's nothing but this earth. Yeah. Yeah. No, there's definitely stuff where they're like it's rare that you have a super reliable source, and then even when you do, they'll do things to be like it's not a reliable source.
And then you go, okay, so now we're saying that this family they disappeared. Well, if you're the government, wouldn't you not do that if you're trying to make them like the second? It's kind of like
a lot
the whole,
of governments have made a lot of people disappear.
but it's kind of like a dumb way to go about it because now you've just legitimized it again.
It's also just like there's been so many other things about aliens recently.
right.
Like they didn't need to do anything
Well,
about
and
that
the other
story.
part of it too is also like a lot of stuff is being like, "Ooh, look over here," because actually, if you were looking at the original thing, you'd be seeing stuff they didn't want you to see.
Yeah.
I
So
just
who knows what else was going
diversions.
on in Vegas this week?
Yeah.
Nobody knows because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah.
Unless the family got disappeared away. I just feel like, I like to believe that the people that are psyoping us on a daily basis, they know they're 4 steps ahead of us. That's why you got to crack the code. They know that we think that
We know.
that we think we know. They know that we think we know. And they know that if somebody comes out with a story that looks bad on the government, that probably the worst thing they could do is to like criminalize it or disappear them or like assassinate them. Because at that point, at least for me, I'm going, okay, so if this person was just like a wackadoo, then why did they put so much effort into suppressing them? It's like reverse making sense. I believe they call that not making sense.
I believe they call that nonsense.
Nonsense. Yeah. So now I'm wondering, like, with this whole disappearing thing, maybe they're like 3 steps ahead where they're like, oh, we put out this stupid bullshit story. And then, I don't know, maybe what if the people who put it out, who were bullshitting, decided to disappear so that now it legitimizes their story more? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it went through the news cycle too quick.
Yeah.
They wanted people talking about them again.
I just never understood why, like, that's another one that I just never understood why it would be like, if there are aliens, why would it matter if we know or not? What's the big deal, dude?
I mean, a lot of it, at least like some of the argument, right, is also that it's like about geopolitics too, where it's like some of the theories are like, okay, Russia, China, America are in this like technology race as well. So like they are looking to use alien tech for weapons and they don't want the other countries to know what they have. And that's another like thing that also ties into like a lot of the time, like one explanation people have is like sometimes when you're seeing like videos of alien phenomena, sometimes that's just like new missiles tests that they are like coding as that they actually do want other countries to be like, oh fuck, they figured that out. Like there's like a lot of that kind of stuff still happening in like global power struggles.
Yeah, I could see how like
So it's like not just like the regular American populace. It's like we don't want them to know what's really going on so that no one can tell like other countries too, like what's going on.
I thought you were going to go down the road of like, because everyone always says like, oh, once aliens come, there'd be nothing to divide us. We'd all come together as a human race to go against one enemy.
Yeah, I do think that would be true. Like in Independence Day, the movie Independence Day, I love that movie because I think that is what
I
happens.
don't think I've ever seen that movie.
It's good. Will Smith, when he goes, welcome to Earth,
I know it's a big
bitch,
deal. Yeah.
punches the alien in the face. That's awesome. Makes you like proud to be an Earthling. There are a few times in my day do I self-identify as an Earthling.
Right.
But it's so true.
It's a special moment when
It's a special moment when I just feel a camaraderie with every... Earthling could be... A squirrel is an Earthling.
That's true.
Like, we're all united, dude.
Yeah.
You know? I could see why maybe some of these UFOs that people find are actually like classified there's a level of technology that we have that we don't want other countries to know we have access to because we don't want them to have access to it either. So in that light, you could look at it and be like, maybe we actually do have the ability to do some like crazy shit with like physics and stuff that like when they talk about the ships that'll like go super fast and then stop on a dime and like go in like anti-gravity and stuff. In theory, that shit could be possible. I mean, that the physics could line up. It's just a matter if we could achieve it.
Yeah.
And then you have to wonder, like, maybe we did achieve it, but we just don't.
Super destructive if it was like regularly used. Yeah.
Because that's like a whole thing. Like, didn't we take a lot of like the engineers from Nazi Germany and we just brought them over here?
Yeah.
You know,
they just like got work visas
so
to come to America.
So we don't want. So now are we leaning more towards there's not aliens? Maybe they're actually just human beings are capable of way more than
Nazis.
Or
Nazis.
Like what has been confirmed by the government, like in opening up about like declassifying different papers and other things, is that there absolutely is a research program at the Pentagon on alien technology. So it's like they've definitely been spending a lot of taxpayer money studying aliens. They've got an alien program.
I support that.
And that is true. And they're like, we have an alien program.
I support that. I don't know what percentage of the budget I'd be willing to allocate. But if somebody came to me with a piece of paper and was like, all right, what percentage of your personal income would you be willing to contribute towards alien research? I'd be like, I don't know, maybe like fucking 1%.
Yeah.
1 cent for every dollar? And you're looking into aliens? I'll take that.
Yeah.
You know, I think most people would agree with that. I think most people want to know that, you know?
Right. Well, but that's part of the problem with government research is it's not always for the benefit of like the public.
Yeah, and they don't
like get to know about all of that. You know, just because they do it with your money doesn't mean they're going to tell you.
They don't tell us shit, and it's annoying.
Hell yeah, dude. I totally agree.
They would never tell you what your money's going towards.
They would never tell you about that.
Or even
you'd
percentages.
Be so mad, dude.
Yeah, you'd be pissed.
You'd be so pissed.
I would only be pissed. I'd only be pissed if it turns out they got nothing so far. That is what would piss me off. They were like, dude, yeah, we spent like billions of dollars and well, I don't think there's aliens. I'd be like, damn, dude, that sucks. You know, that would piss me off.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the one blunder that, you know, the public did hear about was when, you know, the local Hubble telescope was being built right here in Baltimore, Maryland. You know, they were working with teams from all over the world, and one team sent schematics for something in metric instead of standard or whatever the fuck it is. And, you know, a lens got built way too small.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so then they spent like $1 bajillion on like a piece of a telescope that didn't even fit.
Wow.
taxpayer dollars.
That is unreal.
At that.
That's crazy.
It's unreal when you learn about some of the mishap. That's like a mishap that that's like a my YouTube comment level fuck up.
Yeah.
And that was with 30 minutes of half attention.
yeah.
And they
This
made
was someone's whole job.
they made a whole telescope. And we're just like, fuck, dude, you meant centimeters? God damn it.
Oh my gosh.
That's a
really
bummer.
Crazy.
That's a fucking bummer. I don't know, dude. I just don't know. I'm gonna take a piss real quick. BRB.
Yeah, do it up.
Drop some sponsors.
Yeah, this week, live from the studio is brought to you by aphids. The little bugs that eat your plants. Go into your garden today and get some aphids for free. Use code LFTS on your plan, and you can eat as many aphids as you want. Also brought to you by this week. That wasn't a sentence. But if you want to buy a red Komodo, hit up ATB Productions on Instagram. We just bought 2 new cameras and we don't need it anymore. So at ATB Productions, if you're looking to buy a red Komodo 6K camera, I think we're putting a listing on eBay soon. So keep an eye out for that. Coming up in August, we're going down to
Richmond.
Do you know the date for that?
I think it's August 10th.
August 10th. I've been promoting it for the last month and never said the date. So
I'm pretty sure it's the 10th. Yeah.
August 10th, Richmond, Virginia. Come see us. Do a little hot set down there.
Yeah.
I feel like you've been promoting it for longer than a month. I feel like you've been promoting it for like
probably.
3 months. You're
Yeah.
like,
It's
sometime.
like the big thing coming up.
Yeah.
So.
Someplace in time.
It's my only booked show coming up.
That's cool. You'd think you'd be better at remembering the date at that point.
When you only got one.
Listen, I don't have a calendar like you.
That's true. Dude. That's true. You don't have the benefit of a calendar right in front of your face at all
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, we've got our dog yoga calendar on the fridge.
I know, but I don't travel with that.
Yeah.
I don't bring it to the podcast.
Going back to what we were discussing, I did, speaking of things that like I entertain, we've discussed the moon thing in the past. This is not whether or not the moon exists.
Okay.
I've accepted that.
All right.
But if there is one, like I always talk about, like with conspiracies, for me, if you can give me a motive, I'm all ears, baby. I'll listen. If you can give me a good reason why this would be a lie, and it has to be like mostly a money thing or like some type of thing, because that's usually what most people are motivated by in some way or another, is like power and money. If you look at the potential, now again, I do. If you held a gun to my head and said, "Did we go to the moon?" I'd say yes. I'd say yes. I think we did. But
then you'd say, psych.
Psych. But the idea of why we might have lied about that,
You find that compelling?
it's compelling for sure. I mean, you're in this fucking space race with the USSR, and basically, I guess the whole premise of it was like, we're going to prove that capitalism rocks and communism does not rock. And so we're always just trying to like be the better fucking country and like do more shit. I feel like that's like the elementary school version of that whole conflict, but
Yeah.
overall there was obviously like a battle between those two systems. And it makes good sense to me, when you consider how have we been back? Because that's a big moon guy thing people say, like, we never went back. We went once. And then that was in what, 1960 something, and then we just never went back.
Didn't they
Yeah.
go back to put a little like rover on the moon? Or is that
I mean, they put a
Mars?
Mars rover down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they've
I
got
don't think
little
there's been
bots on the
many.
moon.
There's been a lot of like missions to the space station, but I feel like not many to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like
Well, I also don't-
the whole
I mean,
race for space was
there's
really
this-
also just like, hey, we can shoot something really, really far.
Right. Or like
What if we send
being,
a
like,
bomb that far.
Yeah. It's a
That's
lot
why
of
the
like
Cuban Missile Crisis was such a
threatening-
thing.
Just threatening that, oh, if anything goes off, guess what? I could blow you up so bad.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So don't mess
Blow
with
up
me.
the moon if I wanted to.
That's why Russia was like,
Basically,
hey,
yeah.
we got missiles in Cuba. It's not that big of a difference from, us to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think the U.S. had like missiles in maybe Turkey at the time.
of course.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like too close for Russia's comfort. And that's why I just had to watch last year a like 10-year-old's history project about the Cuban Missile Crisis. So that is what I'm trying to recall right now.
It is amazing how many
like-
things you just say in conversation. You
Yeah.
have no idea what the fuck. Like Gulf of Tonkin. You're like, you look at conspiracies, Bay of Pigs, Gulf of Tonkin. You're just like, if anybody were to sit me down and be like, all right, what happened with the Bay of Pigs? Why don't you elaborate? I'd be like, I don't know. It was fucked up though.
I can't believe they did that.
I mean, dude, I just can't believe they did it.
Oh my gosh,
I mean,
yeah.
if you ask me, it's absolute bullshit.
And the government did it.
It's the government.
And they were in league together making these
The
decisions.
government and the pigs.
Yeah, that's
It
how
was
you know.
set up from the beginning.
Who couldn't have seen that coming? The Bay of Pigs.
And then snap goes the trap. Caught in the pig's net once again.
Yeah, it's like I have no fucking idea about any of this shit. I just know that there's some shit that
You're
happened.
like, for sure, though.
For sure. I mean, like the
Yeah.
stuff that I'm more familiar with, like Pearl Harbor, I could see, like that's another one that I'm like, was that really, was it Japan? Like, why would they do that? Why, if you're the Japanese, would you go, all right, we're trying to win this war. We're having a pretty tough time of it already. You know what we should do is bomb the most powerful country in the world, get them involved, and not even attack them like somewhere where like, really like attacked Hawaii. I mean, I get that maybe that's like the closest like air base to Japan, but like
It's a
what
big
was
naval base, too.
what was the thinking there? Like what? How could you possibly justify that a country who's already in a world war goes, you know who we need to get? The most powerful country in the world against us.
Well,
Why would you do that?
and so this is also me, like, half remembering. And then you also go, I haven't had the time to like go back and be like, and how much of my understanding of this whole situation is also like America's side of the
Misinformation, yeah.
story about
Yeah.
being like, we were so right and we were so good and we didn't make any mistakes. We've never done anything wrong. But like, I feel like my understanding was the Axis powers were kind of winning at that point. And
So they got too big for their britches?
The future plan was like, we're taking over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Bitch.
And we hadn't really
You
stepped
know?
in.
And we were
before
staying
that.
out of it. We were like, that's kind of a you all problem. It's not really an us problem.
So I think we
We're
were like,
dealing with our freaking Great Depression and
we're
shit
making
over
fat
here.
paper, selling shit to all sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, also, if you think about it this way, everyone's fighting on, the front of Europe, like,
Yeah.
west
We
to
had
east.
no like
No one was
physical-
coming up from behind besides Russia.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they were involved at that point.
Oh, I think they were.
But you got to think about it that way.
Russia had like the biggest death toll of all.
Yeah, for sure.
They kind of look at the United States. They're like, wow, you guys don't know shit about dying in war. And we're like, well, I mean, they kind of they had the most ruthless, the most Russian way of going about it, which
It's
is
just
basically like
throwing bodies at it.
Yeah.
we
It
are
is
so much.
cold as fuck. And we will literally just, as you're trying to advance towards Moscow, we will just burn down and destroy every possible city on the way there, so you never have a way to like
Yeah,
refuel.
it's like so desolate.
They just
make
destroyed
it
themselves.
desolate. Yeah.
And it's only Russia could and would do that. They are wild about that shit. But that shit, at least, like, it adds up. I don't know, like, even if you entertain, which I obviously do because I don't know all the details about this shit. Again, my entire interpretation of World War I and World War II and basically everything is through the lens of how, Americans, United States have spun it, and you kind of got to go
Right.
out of your way
Yeah.
to get a different angle on that. Like, I do wonder, like,
And it's also like
How is it
shit
taught in
from
Jap-
20 years ago that you're trying to remember and
Yeah.
then like filling in the blanks
when
with
you like
pop
originally
culture.
learned it. Yeah.
yeah, like
And even then, like a lot of kids also end up hearing a lot of propaganda as well. Like that was one of, again, I was judging like the Maryland History Day last year for like middle schoolers, and they all had to do history projects, and a bunch of them did them about the atomic bomb. Which you're like, honestly, kids, this is a pretty heavy thing for you to be trying to take on in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Like to be like, I'm going to research this and I'm totally going to get it.
yeah.
But like a couple of the kids were like, yeah, the United States was totally right to drop the bomb. And I'm like, that to me sounds like you've only looked at sources from America. You've only bought into American propaganda about what happened with all of that.
Yeah, there's a good. Well, there's an argument to be made about that, because I think a lot of it was driven by like, Japan's like, I think there was a point where generals were discussing like they had started to like run low on like men, and to the point where they were now like military which nowadays seems like okay, we already do this. But like back then it was like, dude, they are literally willing to fight to the last person. Like they were training women and children and stuff. And like they basically had said like, we will not ever surrender.
It's like the total war. Yeah.
We will fight to the last man. And if you look at it that way, and if you take their words at face value there, then there is an argument to be made that by just hitting them all at once with some gigantic bomb or two gigantic bombs that kind of just like woke them up and was like, no, dude, like, we can do this, and we did do it, and we'll do it again if you don't surrender. There's an argument to be made that, I know it's a weird angle, but that lives were saved.
I mean, and that I think is the argument that like has been published in, textbooks for high school.
Because those motherfuckers don't fuck around, dude. If there's dude, they do not fuck around.
I mean, and that's part of the thing, is that also that's like the angle that still at the end of the day makes the United States sound like a good guy. I would argue part of it was they just wanted to see what would happen, to actually drop it on real people instead of the tests that they've been doing.
Is it true that they like told the cities to evacuate and shit?
Not that I don't know that I've ever heard that.
Yeah, I've
I
never
thought they
heard
like
that.
gave them a warning and were like, we're gonna do this at this time, this day, and then like most people got away. Other people were like, fuck it, I'm calling your bluff or whatever. I'm not leaving or something like that. That's been my understanding of it.
That's interesting.
Not
I mean,
trying to.
I would say I've never
Romanticize it.
heard that before.
Yeah, it's hard to romanticize or make light of the fact that we dropped 2 atomic bombs and
Right.
killed however many people. But
And we named him like, what was it? Something in
Fat
Fat
Boy,
Man.
yeah, Fat Man and
Big Boy.
Sir Duke.
Yeah,
I don't
some
know.
shit. Yeah.
And like the guy who like
Little
dropped it was
Timmy,
like,
or I don't know. It was like
I
something
am
really.
Death's
The
master. or something.
vaporizer.
Yeah.
I think that was Oppenheimer, who was the one that like made it. Was like, I am become death.
Yeah, and then I was like, dude, you am not become learned English yet, because that's not. It's not how you.
Because that doesn't sound good, dude.
Like you just created
so
the top.
dumb right
You sound
now.
dumb as fuck, bro.
Oh, you're
That
so
being
smart. You
said-
figured this out.
I do want to see Oppenheimer. I want to see
Really?
that Christopher Nolan movie. Yeah.
Oh, dude.
That's going to be
Interesting.
crazy.
Yeah, man. Nolan got
I
me.
didn't know that about.
Apparently they they did a real bomb. Like some of the
No.
bomb effects are like real explosions that they filmed.
Well, Nolan apparently is like really against CGI. He's like all about. Apparently, that was a thing in Dunkirk where I watched some like video on YouTube, like not criticizing, but just kind of like going over. It was basically like a history channel where they kind of like analyze all these like famous historical movies and just kind of go over like how accurate it was. And for the most part, in terms of historical accuracy, his movies always like do really well. At least Dunkirk did really well. I don't know how many historical movies he's made, but I remember that the guy was like really stoked about it. He loved the movie, but there's one thing he mentioned where he was like, you know, when they're doing like the beach evacuation scene, Nolan was super opposed to any type of CGI whatsoever. So when they had like these wide shots of the beach from like the sky where you're seeing all these troops on the beach waiting to be evacuated, in the movie, it was like a few hundred people or like maybe even 1,000 people on this giant beach. But that's because he only had access to get like, you know, as many extras as he could get. It's, you know, when in reality it was probably like multiple thousands, tens of, I don't know how many people, I have no idea. But like, in an effort in like his purism and not being willing to use CGI to like more accurately depict just how many people were on that beach trying to leave.
Was focused on it being real people.
Yeah, then it wound up actually kind of underselling just how many people were there. You know, which I'm sure there's other ways to do it. Maybe you just, I don't know, zoom the camera in. That's what I would do if I was a famous director.
Or do like what old video games did, where it's just like the same people over and over and over again.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't notice that, you know? But I don't know. There's just like I wonder, like, even from like the German point of view of like world, like if you look, like, I just want to know what Japan says when they talk about World War II and what Germany says when they talk about it. Because you know that they're bringing up a whole bunch of shit that like we don't talk about. Like we kind of like acknowledge that the ending of World War I was like totally fucked up in terms of how we like spread the blame. We basically like took advantage of our position, you know, the Allies or whatever, to be like, oh yeah, we all like fucking did shit. I remember I watched that movie, not 1917, All Quiet on the Western Front, which took me, I watched the entire movie before I realized it was overdubbed. I don't know. I don't know how I made it. I usually can tell from the first fucking moment. And at the end of the movie, I just noticed like the text in the credits was in German. And I was like, wait, was that whole thing in German? It was like amazing. I couldn't believe I didn't catch it. Yeah. But at the end of it, they're saying like that, like hundreds of thousands of people died or something like that. And over the course of however many years they've been fighting on that like French battlefield, that like only no more than 100 yards was gained by either side. And it was just those pointless, like fruitless, like killing of like countless people. It's insane.
Part of why like World War I was such a, you know, big turning point for people too, because it really like kind of just shattered people's brains to understand that so many people could die. Yeah. And so little get accomplished.
And there was like,
it just turned people around. Like everyone was kind of like in a basic attitude that like the world is generally good and we're trending towards positive progress. And then they're like, actually, never mind.
Psych.
My brain is going to just get shredded.
Yeah, and the other thing is there was really no rules, and which is weird.
That's what led to like the Geneva Convention and stuff, right?
You like the fucking
like chill out on the chemical warfare. Stop doing that. It's gonna get you.
If you could knock it off with the genocide, please.
Yeah, and it was like one of the first times, or the first time, where a lot of these different countries with varying levels of technology met all at once, where like a lot of these places didn't even know what these other countries had. Like there was still, I think there's like still photographic, whatever you want to call it, footage or evidence or documentation of like the German cavalry was still riding into battle on horseback during World War I at the same time when there was fucking fighter jets.
Right.
And it's like, you can't imagine it, but it was like this such just like crazy, where they were just like, I don't know, this is what we've been doing for the past 1,000 years. Send in the cavalry. And they're like with swords on horseback. Meanwhile, a plane's flying over top, shooting them down and spraying chemical fucking shit. And you're like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Also, the planes back then, the guns were behind the propeller.
That is just, whenever you think humanity has just gone too far, then you got to take a step back and be like, that's another metric system.
They had to time out shooting in between the fucking blade spinner.
How do you fuck that up?
I don't know.
It's remarkable. No, it's just, and then you look at like how it ended, and the whole world basically on our side, the United States, or fucking, you know, England, Britain, whatever. We were like France. We were like, all right, so yeah, we totally did this, and that was stupid and really bad. But also, you guys owe us for all of it. Yeah. You guys owe us for all of it. Like, we win, you lose, and now it's your job to pay back this unfucking believable amount of money for all the damages for like everything. Yeah. And then, of course, lo and behold, Germany falls into economic despair because they're responsible for paying off basically the entire debt single-handedly of World War I. And then, wouldn't you know it, you know, Hitler rises to power, and then World War II starts. And you're looking at it and going like, well, I mean, to me, that's such a blatant display of like short-sightedness or greed, when you have these guys who were on the Allied powers at the end of World War I going like, yeah, we'll just make Germany pay for all of it. And it's like, well, how do you not see it coming that you're going to destroy this country and their only way out is going to be to have to fight back? And I'm not justifying World War II or Hitler, but like
fight back is the right word to use in this context. I would say for like the general populace to, for the most part, get like whipped up and taken advantage of by a charismatic, absolutely insane person.
But,
I wouldn't go like, well, of course they're gonna come fight back, and I'm like, like it just sounds a little too positive.
Sounds
to
a little
me.
too South will rise again.
Well, I guess,
but to say that like
I'm just kidding.
that when people are put in a super desperate situation, when someone comes along that is selling them on something that they can justify or that sounds like it could be a good deal for them, like that's much more likely to happen, is when you're going to get people who are like bad intentions, going to do bad.
I mean, it's almost
it's
like
when that's predators come in when people are vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's
why
so
scammers call old people, or like, it's never a rich person who falls for the Nigerian prince scam. It's someone who's like, God damn it, I wish I just had like a little extra money.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. Oh, fuck.
Right. Which is not to say that the German people shouldn't have a little more agency and being like, hey, this is fucked up. We should.
Well, that's what I mean.
But still, it's like, it's a,
If you remove Hitler from, not even, that could sound stupid, I just mean like, basically what I'm saying is remove Hitler from the equation, just hypothetically. If it wasn't Hitler that rose to, if it was going, like when you are a country, like I'm talking about just a populace in general, when your entire livelihood has been stripped away from you to the point where now it takes like 1 million Weimars or whatever to buy like a loaf of bread, to the point where like you cannot survive, and you have been against your will based off some fucked up treaty negotiation. Basically it's like, what was another possible outcome outside of fighting back? Because when a country says you owe me money, you go, I'm not going to pay that money, what do the people think happens? It's war.
I don't know what you mean by fighting back. I just feel like that's, I feel like, again, what's happening is like, if you have super severe economic instability, if you have things like your country has been also, like in other cases too, systematically destabilized by a power like the United States, then you're more susceptible to, I would say, extremism. Like that's kind of like what happened with Iran too, is like they were destabilized. They had a democratically elected government that didn't want to hang out with the United States. The United States took that government out, and then who took over? But like extremist people who imposed a like theocracy that was very repressive on people, that is like now getting protested against, and people are also dying protesting against it. It's like, when people don't know what to do, when they don't know what to trust, again, if someone has a solution for all of those things and can come in, that's how you get dictators a lot of the time. Is that you want someone to come in and fix it, or like tell you what to do, or like if you do have a historical enemy that has been oppressing you and they're like, we're going to get him out of here, that's a thing. Sometimes it's like, how about this oppressed group that has been oppressed the whole time, and we're going to get them out of here too. But it's like, that's more likely to happen if you have dealt with this economic instability. And
what not obviously like the specifics of Hitler are the specifics, but outside of like, when I guess what I mean by fighting back is like, at some point, if the option to say no, we're not paying it doesn't exist, we're not paying back this debt, we can't.
I just don't think that's what happened to start that conflict.
What do you mean?
Do you know what I mean? There wasn't like ooh, debt collectors coming around, and you're like, no, go away, we don't have it. Like, that's not what happened with World War II.
What happened?
Hitler started annexing countries and like invading countries that had treaties with other countries. He started trying to expand the borders of Germany. And some of that was like him being like, oh, one time in like the Middle Ages, this was part of Germany or something like that. But it didn't really it wasn't about like being like, the United States is knocking at our door again looking for that money, let's fight them now. It was like he started aggressing and expanding the territory in order to, again, create more living room for his perfect Aryan families to homestead and then again take over the world as a perfect like white race. That was his goal. And so you're
saying they weren't connected?
I'm saying that it's not them fighting back. It's them starting to take out other countries that did not want to get taken out.
It might have been his rise going around because he was like a public speaker at first.
Exactly.
So he might have gone around
he was able
saying
to like
stuff about the debt and
being like
and we shouldn't have to pay that.
Right. So it's like more
But
so
the
him being like the German race has been like, you know, we're better than this moment that we're in right now. What we should be doing is taking over everything. Like, just because they've kicked us like a dog doesn't mean we have to stay small. We can be big. It was like that kind of rhetoric. And then being like, and you know who's been sabotaging us the whole time? Jewish people. Like, that was the direction of what he was doing and going in.
Yeah, I guess I was going at it from an angle of like, we were talking about how like when you grow up in the United States, you learn history from one side. And again, this isn't me. I'm not at all defending Hitler or anything like that. I'm just saying like, I would be interested to know when German schools teach their kids about how the rise to the escalation to World War I happened, if their justification is as I guess kind of cut and dry as like, oh no, yeah, we were kind of fucked. And then so basically this guy rose up and just started invading people. And then you go like, okay, but like I look at similarities even in terms of like with now, and this is another thing that I'm not totally educated on, but just like noticing similarities. You have like Putin in Russia, and then you have like, you know, we learn about the war going on, which is crazy to think about now that the Ukraine thing has been going on for like, I don't know when did it first kick off? Like fucking
2 years
February.
ago,
Yeah.
right?
Like a while ago at this point. It's almost like people don't really talk about it as much anymore. It's not like headlines anymore. But even at that time, I'm always sitting there going like, okay, so this is the story that I'm being told as to why this is happening. And to me, I've never been a big fan of just the evil asshole argument. Like, right. I don't like, I'm not saying that he's not an evil asshole, but when we look at the war in Ukraine, it seems like there's got to be other things at play, obviously, more so than just Putin being a dick. And like, then you look at like, well, what spurred him to do that? And you look at like, well, you know, we had this treaty that said we weren't going to add any of the countries that were on his border because he didn't, just like what we talk about, like with the Cuban Missile Crisis, how like It was a big advancement when the communists gained influence in Cuba because that's 90 miles off our coast. And now they're able to establish fucking like military bases and missile launching pads 90 miles from our coast. So that was like a big aggression because we're like, no, dude, now you're too close. Now you're an actual threat to our national security. And so if you look at it from the Russian perspective, it's like, you know, There's
also like 7 things happening with it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There's like a bunch of stuff going on. So I'm just like, we have this very I think we have like 1/7 of the story as it pertains to all these things, as it pertains to everything. And I think that like, I think that's kind of, I think that sometimes that can be more dangerous than I think people would imagine, is because when you look back through history at a guy like Hitler, of course you need to acknowledge that was totally wrong and evil what he did. But if you just write it off as like there was this unique occurrence of this crazily charismatic
there's like
person.
A bunch of things going on together, but I think that's also part of like the one reason that I'm kind of like harping on the fight back thing as being not accurate, is that also a lot of people have spun that story with not a lot of information into a thing of being like just in a dangerous way that is both not accurate and bad. Like you get into bad shit really quick with that. So I just want to be, like, I don't think that that's what you're saying, which is why I want to get into being like, I think, I wouldn't say it like that because I don't think that's
sympathetic
Correct.
almost.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, the fight
and it's
back
like,
things,
and
yeah.
again, it's like, Hitler wasn't even German; he was Austrian. Like it was. There's so many different layers into being like, but how is he able to also tap into this thing where enough people did go along?
Yeah.
With what he wanted, and that was, again, taking advantage of people who had already felt resentful and like they'd been stepped on or like whatever because of the way that the reparations were handled after the first war. Yeah.
And like even like with the Greek independence with Turkey, I grew up obviously an American mostly obviously, and then I'm also ethnically
Towsonian.
culturally Towsonian. I'm ethnically
Towsonian.
Towsonian, which I guess is the actual thing, right? Towsonian.
I don't know.
So you learn when you're learning about Greek history from the Greek perspective, you get this kind of like, yeah, we gained our independence from the Turks, and we said, fuck you, Turkey. We're fucking taking our shit back. We're fighting back. And then you look at like what was really going on, and you're like, oh, wait. So the Ottoman Empire posed a major obstacle to Britain's colonization of India and things like that. And so they basically went in and like funded the Greeks so that they could take out the Ottomans.
Like British people on the Greek throne.
Yeah, and installed like
You're basically Al Qaeda.
It literally. I mean, literally, yeah. That's the thing. That's why I think that like when you look at it from that angle, I think if you look at like that's why when you're looking at like things that are going on today, and you're like, wow, like you look at stuff going on in the Middle East, and it's like,
right. It's like about like 7 more things than you as a regular citizen in our country are necessarily like tapped into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with all that considered, that's why I
just don't feel that way about World War II because I think we know enough about World War II that we know what was going on a little bit more. That's all. I do agree with you being like, on a global political level, what are again these like bigger games that are being played by countries and
well, you kind of everybody morale is a huge thing, and in order to convince somebody to actually want to participate in a war, each participating party has to have a means of making their soldiers and their citizens feel like they are the justified party.
Right. And
like,
propaganda is really big for that. And then the United States got really sensitive after World War II about being like, well, we don't do propaganda in America, which is absolutely not true.
Yeah.
But it's like, every country
it's like, of course we do. Yeah.
We used
it's
to
all
like
happening all the time.
show the news at the movie theater.
I'm sorry, NCIS as a show is like military propaganda.
Oh, I thought that was is that am I thinking of CSI? Is that different?
Yeah. It's Navy CSI basically. It's just but they're all like gunny sergeant. What happened? Like everything has to involve either a Marine or someone in the Navy.
Okay.
but it's also propaganda. Like the first episode, I watched it again recently. I watched it when I was in like middle school and high school. And then I was like, oh, I'll watch this during the pandemic. And the first episode takes place on like Air Force One with George Bush. And there's like a sleeper cell terrorist on the plane that they have to neutralize. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And it's like anytime anyone could speak Arabic, you're like, well, I guess that's the guy for the episode because this came out in 2003. Like, it's rampant.
I mean, you look at even like with Vietnam, if you really think about it, it's like even with Vietnam, it's like people talk about like, yeah, we lost Vietnam. It's like we lost the war we were trying to fight. Realistically, we had just literally dropped an atomic bomb on 2 atomic bombs on Japan. At that time, 2 decades prior or something like that. If you really want to talk about like winning or losing a war, it's like if we wanted to at any point, we could have. I mean, not that we should have, but at any point we could have literally blown the whole country
so I think
to nothing.
Many people's issue with it as well was like that was one of the first wars where there were actually like cameras there a lot.
Yeah.
So that people at home could be like, what the hell is going on? It's like, I know my mom like grew up and that would be playing on TV and she was like, it was very scary to see as a child. So I think that affected a lot of people's, imagination of that war.
Yeah.
But then you also had like, I think a lot of people, what they took issue with was also the government didn't make effective decisions about the war. So you're like, sure, you could have dropped a bomb at any time. That would have probably been bad too. But also that's not what happened. What you did was you like, blew up a couple jungles and then lost all of these young boys that you dragged over there.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, you ruined their lives, and everyone was just watching you waste money and human beings on this thing that wasn't going anywhere, that you were in for way too long.
Yeah.
That was like kind of, I think, the start of people being like critical about being like, actually, you're not giving me any really good reasons about why we're still here.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing well.
I don't even know if I know why we went into Vietnam.
I mean, mostly because I think basically the French colonial like puppet government that was in place was being overthrown by Ho Chi Minh, who was the leader of a like Vietnamese communist movement that just wanted them to be an independent, non-colonized country. So the United States was like, not on my watch.
Was it the same? Was it a similar situation to the Korean War? In terms of
terms of it was kind of a proxy war with Russia of just being like, all you communists are in it together, and we're not going to let another country fall for it. There was like this other thing that was
because
basically
Vietnam
a
is like the
theory
tail
that
of the Cold War, basically, right?
Yeah, that was like pretty much like, communist countries are like rotting teeth in the mouth. Once one goes, the countries next to it, those teeth are going to get lost to communism, and like you got to stop it.
Yeah,
like a dentist. But that was like a real thing that people said.
It's nuts.
Use napalm at my dentist.
Yeah.
That was the reason I brought any of that up, is because we were talking about Christopher Nolan, and the most recent movie I watched from him was Interstellar, which I absolutely really did like a lot. I hadn't seen it since 2014, and I think it's one of those movies where like I could see how like it like. I always run the risk of being like one of those like Rick and Morty guys where I'm like, oh, you gotta like, it's like more of like a deep...
you just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's really deep, actually.
But that is like a movie that I think totally you could fit into that bill of like, there's so many things about like the warping of time and gravity and shit, which are technically realistic. Obviously, the technology that they have to play with it is not technology we have now, but it's also based, like, I think they never really say when it's based, but it's definitely based like in the future, because in the beginning, the whole reason I even brought the moon landing is because in the very opening scene of the movie, Matthew McConaughey, who plays like the main character, is in there, and like his daughter was saying that the moon landing was real. And then the school was like, well, we've taught that actually that was just American propaganda to try to win the space race with the communist government. And I was like, so in that movie, they had kind of like taken this like weird futuristic take of that, like actually that was an example of like something that we were all told to believe that wound up not being true 100 years later in the future. When you're like, oh yeah, actually we totally did that just to kind of like, solidify our position in the war. And again, I don't fucking think it didn't happen, but I do think that like if getting to the moon was like, I feel like I just think I feel like even if you were just to have like a service to be like, hey, you want to go to the moon? Like rich people would be all about that shit.
That's
like
what
there'd
they're
be
trying to do. That's they're trying to. Well, I mean, they're really more like, we just want to make sure that we'll be able to blast off to Mars and live there when everyone has to suffer in the smoldering pit of whatever Earth has become after climate change is like, that's the main plan.
Do you think that Mars isn't habitable, right? We'd have to build like domes and shit.
They're trying to
right?
work on it, right?
Mm-hmm. They're trying to terraform Mars.
There's like ice and shit, which is crazy. Because I mean, there's like ice everywhere. Here's another fucking thing that pissed me off. I didn't realize that all the planets outside of basically Mars are just gas.
Yeah.
Like Jupiter, I almost feel like that shouldn't count. Like, why are you're a gas ball?
Well, but it's
seems like cheating.
Even that much gas has mass.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's got so much mass, it's a planet.
But like, if you went to Jupiter and tried to land on it, you just like.
Well, you'd get sucked down by the gravity of it. Like, it's super. There's a lot of gravity and there's a lot more gravity, so you'd just be like falling through the clouds of gas.
Yeah, which kind of, I don't know. You don't find that a little bit disappointing?
I mean,
It doesn't bum you out at all.
It doesn't
there's
bum
something
you
under
out
the
at all that
clouds.
you can't land on it like a little Looney Tune.
Yeah,
made
a
it
little
look
bit.
I know. I'm not saying that
Like,
that's,
come on.
I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying, like, yeah, that's, yeah.
Like that, like when I
mean,
learned about
Mercury
that.
is also a rock, right?
Yeah,
But-
basically all the planets on the
Pluto's
inside
like
of
an
the
ice
asteroid
ball,
belt.
right?
Well, Pluto's not even a planet, apparently.
Well,
I think it's a
I
planet
think they
again.
remade it a planet. They were like, just kidding. It's
Yeah,
a
they said,
planet.
"Take
it's just
back."
it's a dwarf planet, but yeah, it's a planet.
They're a little too into. See, at that point, when even the highest minds in our society are
Can
so
be swayed
flaky.
by public opinion.
By
public outrage that
Yeah.
Pluto was demoted.
I mean,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, seriously, it's like how, like, we always are told, like, no, whatever they say goes, that's the way it is. And it's like, okay, well, if I followed every single thing they said to the T and believed every single thing they told me, then in 1990, when I was in elementary school and Pluto was still a planet, I would have said, yeah, Pluto's a planet. And then 10 years later, when they were like, actually, no, we fucked up. We thought it said inches. He actually meant millimeters. So it's not a
Pluto's
planet.
canceled.
Pluto's canceled. And then 5 years later, we're like, actually, we saw how mad you guys were
Right.
about us saying Pluto's not a planet. So actually, it's a planet again. It's like, well, it sounds like you guys don't really know what the fuck you're doing either. A little, not saying you don't know what you're doing, but like, you certainly aren't 100% on it, you know? It's a little bit like, that's why I think that's, you know, it should be encouraged to be like, well, if they're wrong about that shit, like, maybe, you know, maybe, why not?
Yes. And you always just got to watch out,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Watch out for,
You know, don't open your mind so big your brain's going to fall out.
that is a great saying. I love that.
I was just saying.
The old adage.
The
One
old
of my
adage
faves.
is don't open your mind so big your brain's going to fall out.
I love that.
It goes like that. I think it goes pretty close. Don't be too open-minded or your brain will fall out. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. Not don't open your mind so big. but yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of the thing because it's like, it's such a tricky thing to be like, I don't know. Like, I definitely believe that, for example, like the American medical system is not really set up in a way that is like the most beneficial to the most people, which I don't think is too controversial to say, but
Yeah.
like getting into being like the way that things are run is a lot more for efficiency than it is for like individual people's healing.
Well, and profit.
And profit, exactly. When you have private pharmaceutical companies also meddling in stuff like that, when you have like
Yeah, why
insurance
cure
companies
disease if we could
meddling with
hook you
shit
on
like that.
drugs for the rest of your life?
Right.
Yeah.
But then if you get too far into that, then you get to a point where then some people fall off that like kind of like trying to see all the sides and stuff, and then they fall into being like, oh, vaccines give my children autism. You know, like you get into things where like if you're too, you just have to be like really clear on like what are your criticisms, where are they coming from, what sources do you think are credible, and that kind of stuff, because a lot of people get sucked into stuff that is also super harmful by accident by being, you know.
Yeah. I did find it fascinating how, like, it seemed like my entire life, it was considered the, like, normal take as, like, a pretty, like, critical thinking, free thinking person to be like, fuck big pharma, dude. They're out there. They're trying to get you addicted to these drugs. They caused the fucking opioid epidemic. They did this. They're always looking out to get profit. Like even with fucking, I remember Marissa was telling me about some documentary she watched about Pfizer, like about how like they totally knew that these Oxycontin or whatever the fuck they did at the time was like totally addictive.
I think Sackler was one of the big companies for that.
Yeah.
too.
Well, I think it was, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know who exactly did what, but I mean, it's a pretty, like, you watch these documentaries, you watch these like open secrets, I guess, about like how profit driven these industries are. And then it seemed like in the matter, it was weird because again, I agree with you that like, if you go too far with it, you can wind up becoming harmful in the other direction.
Yeah.
But it did seem like it was like a reasonable debate was there to be had about the motives of these companies. You know, like when you can't, like for me, you can't just sit there and go,
And part of the motive was also like to be the first to get the vaccines done meant that they would be getting a lot of money from the government, which they did. They did earn a lot of money.
oh, totally.
They did get a lot of money, and then being able to like, oh, you got a cure and you're going to put a patent on it, so that like when you get to a point that it's no longer government subsidized, you'll be making a lot of money. That definitely.
Is
But
there,
that didn't mean that they were like putting nanobots in there. You know,
Yeah,
what I
not
mean? Like,
nanobots.
but I'm saying
Yeah.
like a lot of the debates that are like, we're just having a debate going back and forth. you end up in the nanobot place too. So
Yeah, totally.
I'm just saying that like on the cultural conversation of being like, yeah, absolutely. I think there's healthy criticism. There was a lot of stuff too about people like, in like the black community
the
being like,
is hearing this
I know,
comment.
they're like,
don't
we got to
like it.
shut it down.
The Pfizer
in the black
station,
community
the Pfizer department.
kind of coming off of like the Tuskegee experiment did experiment on black people without their consent for decades and like for way too long. And they knew that they had given people venereal diseases and were letting them live with it.
Yeah.
And they could have cured it at any time and they could have called it off and they just didn't do that. So it's like that is a point where you can be like, yeah, that's a pretty strong data point for why you would not trust the government wanting to give you a vaccine right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that the majority of the conversation about not trusting the government, not trusting the vaccine wasn't coming from that. The majority and the loudest voices were coming from white people who were like, and also nanobots, and it's a conspiracy, and like, or like they're hiding something in the vaccine, or there's a bunch of people being like, it's the mark of the devil, and it's the apocalypse and the Antichrist, etc. Like that was where people were taking it.
That was, I mean, those people certainly exist. And I
think they got the most airtime on the news too, because they're also like, that's the most extreme viewpoint. So that's the thing that's going to get people going like, what the hell? That's crazy or whatever. But either way, as long as people are getting riled up about it,
Engagement.
like that's,
Looking back,
That's
it's
what's
kind of wild. Like I never thought I'd say this, but I feel like the climate around the COVID issue has kind of cooled off a little bit, obviously at this point, to the point where, I think that now it's more possible to look back and kind of just discuss the realities of certain things. There are certainly, when you listen to, I guess, like with Alex Jones being like, but then again, it's like, you have to wonder, like we were talking about before with like controlled disinformation, it's like, if you want someone to not sympathize with a certain angle on an issue, you'd probably go out of your way to prop up the most ridiculous versions of that angle, just like we talked about with UFOs. So like if you want UFOs to seem illegitimate as a consideration, then you'd prop up some redneck family. Sure. And so in the same light, if you want the criticisms surrounding the vaccine to seem illegitimate, then you'd probably prop up the fucking people who are saying they're nanobots and mark of the devil and shit. But in reality, it's like what you talked about with like the pharmaceutical companies wanting to, obviously they made a ton of money, hand over fist money. I think they made more money during the COVID pandemic than they had made at any other year ever. Like it was a cash grab in a lot of ways for them. And that there's no way I could be convinced that wasn't part of the consideration when they're all trying to be the first to create the vaccine.
When you also have like, a bunch of senators and people like having their conference to be like, hey, guess what? COVID's coming and it's going to be bad. And then all of a sudden they're dumping stock like crazy too. It's like a lot of people are not acting in necessarily the public's best interest.
So you see these people who have access to information that you don't. You didn't have the access to the information to know. I don't know if you own any stocks. I certainly do not. I own stocks in the Chicago White Sox tonight if we win by 1.5 runs. But outside of that, I don't have much going on in that department. But like you see how there seems to be this like other level of people that just kind of are in the know of what's going on. And then we kind of sit on the sidelines and just watch it happen and are made to either side with them or the other side. And I think that, just kind of arbitrarily siding with one side or the other is the more dangerous thing versus like, for me, I would say a good argument for any, like my personal, any type of like apprehension I had about the vaccine for myself personally was I kind of saw that there may have been a motive for these companies not to fucking put nanobots and shit, but just like when everybody's vying to get that initial contract to make that money, that perhaps the actual efficacy could have been exaggerated a little bit to try to be the first one to the table to get that deal. Looking back on it, I think, I mean, at least from my vantage point, I feel like that has kind of been like when we like, this is not, I'm not making an anti-vaccine statement, but I'm just acknowledging realities, which are that when the vaccine was first put out to the public, it was pitched to us. And it's weird how like the definition changed, because when it was pitched to us, it was this thing like, once we get the vaccine and we get people vaccinated, then the vaccine will stop you from. That was the initial pitch, because that had been vaccines up to that point. You get polio, which there's like a 1 in a trillion chance.
But also, like, that is how that works. If you're going to be like, and then it didn't end, right? Mm-hmm. But that is how that works when, like, if enough people don't get vaccinated, which is what happened, right? Like, we didn't necessarily like pass over that actual like critical mark for how many people should get vaccinated. There were still a bunch of people who were not vaccinated. And when you are not vaccinated against a virus and it spreads from person to person, the faster it spreads from person to person, the faster it mutates. Yeah. So you had a bunch of people who were like, fuck the vaccine, I'm not going to get the vaccine. You know, you came around to the next winter when there was a new strain coming out, and it's like, okay, people got COVID again, but the people that were vaccinated made it through okay. The people that were not vaccinated were in the hospital, you know? But because they didn't get vaccinated still, like, because there were still enough people that were unvaccinated, it keeps mutating and it keeps getting more and more vaccine resistant. So it's like, yeah.
This is anecdotal, but I don't think I've had COVID since. I don't even know if I've ever had it, to be honest. I'm assuming that I had it when it first came out. Eric and I talked about that a long time ago, because I was like the sickest I ever was. And it so happened to be 2 months before, like, it was headline news, COVID. Like, I remember, like, COVID was like a hush whisper topic. Like, it was like an inside
like
joke
that
almost.
December.
When we still called it coronavirus. Yeah. That's another weird thing about, like, we called it coronavirus, and then like about halfway through.
Well, in the beginning,
coronavirus is an umbrella term for a variety of viruses that like.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like how the public addressed it, how quickly it changed.
Then they had to be specific. It's like this specific strain, COVID-19.
But it was like you know, we had the Ebola scare not that long ago. We had the swine flu and bird flu and all these other things. I mean,
when my dad for like a couple of years, like pretty much lived in New York and Canada when I was growing up. And that was when SARS was going around, and he would be like getting onto a plane and everyone would be wearing masks. And at that time, it was such a strange foreign thing to see.
And SARS is SARS-CoV-1, right? So SARS-CoV-2 is the COVID that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But all these, you know, we saw all these things over the years, and you're like, oh my God, I hope this doesn't spread. I hope I don't get it.
Right. Or being like, oh, at least it happened to some other country.
You're
and not
like,
to
yeah,
us. Like,
you see it through a TV screen or computer screen. But then finally COVID, we saw it happening. You'd see a bunch of stuff from China where like they're shutting down, you know, they're bolting people's doors closed if someone had COVID in the building. Like, they're doing all this crazy shit, and we're over here still living normal life, being like, oh damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
everyone's being like, hey, I'm an American and I need to get out of here because this is getting crazy over here. They're like, let's go to New York and LA. Kick this shit off, baby.
And then boom.
Bring it home.
Lockdown.
And even one of the first things before the vaccine was even in consideration, I remember the big thing back then was kind of like, where did it come from? You know, and I remember there were memes about all kinds of stuff, and the story was, I don't know, a wet market or something like that. And I feel like at the time, it was, well, not even I feel like it is the case that at the time, like, people were literally being removed from media, or social media at least, for suggesting that China was responsible for the virus, that it was actually conducted in a lab, which to me, and I mean, this is just my odds brain kicking in. It's like the odds of there being like Jon Stewart did a great bit on that when he went on the Colbert Show. I think we watched it together, Eric, and where he was talking like, was it a wet market in Wuhan, or could it have potentially been from the Wuhan coronavirus lab in the same city? And it's weird how, like, now I almost feel like people don't even talk about it in general. Like, why it existed in the first place. I feel like the narrative that we were given was that wet market narrative, And then when people started to lose faith in it, we just kind of stopped talking about it altogether.
Yeah,
But-
I guess it just depends on maybe who you are and your opinion on it. I don't know. For me, like whether I don't know. I'm just like kind of not connecting with like needing to know where it came from.
Well, I guess
You
it goes
know,
back
like-
to the argument I was making before about just like if you understand how these things happen when they happen, then you have a better opportunity to prevent them in the future. And so when a virus arrives by one means or another that kills hundreds of millions of people across the planet, it seems to me like a very important thing to understand how that happened, why it happened, and how we can stop that from happening again in the future. Like, it's one thing to go, yeah, it happened, it's over, not over, but it's like, we're through the thick of it now. So like, okay, does it really matter if it was started in a lab or if it was started in a wet market? It's like, well, I would say yeah, that does matter, because if it started in a lab and we're not making any of the necessary adjustments to like,
I mean, I
prevent
feel like
that again, then it could happen again.
I guess, but I feel like if it's in a lab, then I guess they probably, I would assume that lab is also figuring it out or trying to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that we would be aware of that, because I don't know that we would be looped into like what's the current lab policy to deal with that. I think maybe more relevant to American citizens would be like, oh, what were the governmental policies to keep it from spreading to America and to keep it from spreading within America? Did we learn anything from that? And I would argue not a lot, because I don't know that that's going to go a lot better next time around,
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a little bit, I don't know. Like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I just am also kind of like, if there are any lab-based restrictions that did need to be put in place, I don't know that we would even be part of that conversation either way.
I mean, not you or not
Yeah,
us.
that's what
Not
I'm
us would be
saying.
part of it, but like on a general public level to kind of like, I mean, it just seems to me like of the utmost importance when you look at World War II, when you look at the Civil War, when you look at the Cold War, Vietnam, you look at COVID, you look at these things, and the whole point of these things happening is, even in your everyday life, you make a mistake. We all make mistakes. Things happen. And you're an idiot if you go through life and some shitty thing happens and you go, no, I guess a shitty thing happened to me. And then you don't go like, well, what steps can I take in the future to make sure that happens? And this is no small thing. This isn't I got in a car accident or I like,
No,
but
but
this
it's
is
also
like
like-
something happened that killed hundreds of millions of people and totally
There's-
stopped the world for 2 years. Besides just the death toll destroying economies, like we're still suffering from the
like-
after effects of that. And it's like,
Yeah, but also the people at the top like still made a bunch of profits on it. So there's also like the other level of that is not just being like, oh no, this bad thing happened. What can we as a group do to make sure that doesn't happen again? You would also need to not have a group of people who are like, oh, I can't wait for the next bad thing to happen so that I can also make crazy profits on it. Like, I don't,
well, yeah, how do you stop that?
That's a
Maybe
great
you call them to task and
question.
hold people accountable. Like even
And
with
then they
like
go,
the,
guess what? Your whole family just disappeared out in Las Vegas.
well, yeah, I mean, like we talked about the
Send
financial.
the alien hitman.
Yeah.
That was what we call in the industry not cool. Like you look at like the '08 financial crisis, and it's like you saw how like all these shitty policies by bankers and mortgage companies and things like that led to a thing, and then.
Well, it's also another thing, again, where it's like people aren't playing the long game. They're playing the short game. And they're like, I know that I might be risking messing this all up, but I'm going to
Yeah.
get as much money out of it as I can until that happens. And then everyone else loses.
Yeah, and I guess you are right. There's always going to be people that are going to find a loophole or some way of working around the system to benefit themselves. But like for instance, with like the housing market crash and those banks like Lehman Brothers going under, to me it really annoys me that they did all that fucked up shit. They knew what they were doing was not good for anyone but themselves.
Yeah.
And they continued to do it. And then when it all came to a head and destroyed the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of people, probably millions of people in terms of, my mom lost her job. She was a mortgage underwriter. Like that's just one example. I mean, there's countless examples of that back at that time. And then, we bail out the banks with taxpayer money. So we take We take money out of our own pockets, like the money that was ours in the first place, and they go, okay, you guys fucked up. You lost all your bets, basically. So here's money to pay that off because you're too big to fail. And then who went to jail for that? Who was like, what happened as the aftermath of that to make sure that didn't happen again? Nothing.
Right.
Literally fucking nothing.
Yeah.
And so now all we've done is set ourselves up for a situation
where it's going to be even harder to hold people accountable in the future because you didn't make that like step to do so at the time.
Totally.
So now they're going to be like, oh, you're going to nail me to the wall for this one now when all those other guys got away with everything that they did. It does make it harder.
Yeah. And then you look at like, nowadays I would say, I don't know what the housing market's looking. You guys just bought a house. I think you guys, honestly, I'm no economicist, but I feel like you guys got right at the bell.
I think we did get a good.
You guys nailed
situation.
it. Because
in terms of like interest rate and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the market is going nowhere but south at the moment. But like even I think right now our generation version of that I think is the student loan thing, and I think that we're now starting to see the consequences of what happens when you convince an entire generation of people that the only way to be successful in life is to take out this absorbent amount of money to go to college.
Like 18 years, 17 years old.
Which is not a coincidence either, that they're preying upon the least experienced, least informed people. Right. And also using the fact that their parents grew up in a time when a college degree meant way more. Not saying a college degree doesn't mean something now, but in our parents' generation, the college degree was something that really actually did make you stand out because it was not the norm. Like you could go through I have like my mom's high school yearbook from Perry High School, and like she graduated class of 78, and like everybody's talking like, what are they going to do after high school? What are they going to do when they graduate? Very few people brought up college. Most people were just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a job here, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do this, that. Like, it's a fairly recent thing that...
It's also like, it was a thing too, where you could like pay for your own tuition at the time by like working as a waitress.
Yeah, like part-time.
Which is like not true anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it's an exponential rise in tuitions as well.
I remember looking this stat up when I was in college age myself in the early 2010s, and from between the years of 1991 and 2011, which I think is when I looked it up. So 20 years, the tuition on average rose 400%, quadrupled in the past 20 years. Not anywhere in relation to inflation. That's not what inflation is. No. And what you have is that there's so many different things going in that you have in the same way that the housing market was pumped up by, basically making these mortgages accessible to everyone. And again, this is another example of how things are pitched to sound like a good thing, because you can't just tell the public, we're going to like stop having any qualifiers for getting a mortgage because we are planning on just like giving out a bunch of mortgages for any amount of money to anyone who wants one, regardless of if they have the credentials to actually pay that mortgage off or have any futures or anything. And then we're immediately going to falsely claim that these loans are rock solid and reliable, and then sell them off to investment banks so that we can get our profit. And then once all these mortgages inevitably wind up not getting paid off, it's going to crash. You can't say that. What you have to do is no, we want to make homes and housing available to everyone, as many people as possible. So everybody goes, oh yeah, that's great. That's fun. That's awesome. We're progressing now. Now you don't, but then it's like, okay, but then they pitch that to us. So we go along with it as the public. And then you kind of see the similarities with how they go like, higher education for everyone, blah, 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 blah. And then you see like now these banks are giving out loans for this exorbitant amount of money. Whereas like normally if you go in, we talked about this before, but like to repeat myself, you go into a bank with a normal business plan. Like if I'm going to start a restaurant, the people who are about to loan you money want to see some type of plan there or some type of, what are you going to do to get this money to pay us back? When you don't have that, an 18-year-old going to college, a very small amount of them, I don't know anybody personally that knew from the moment they got accepted and went to a college exactly what they were going to do. I mean, people do, but like that's not the majority of kids. The majority of kids, I remember even going to Towson University and they were like, yeah, most people don't even claim their major until like junior year or like end of sophomore year or something like that. And they're saying like, yeah, and most people also, most people graduate here at Towson in 5 years, so like don't feel too much pressure to finish in 4 years. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, well, of course you're going to say that because that's another year I'm paying you tuition. Like it's in your business model to make me take as long as possible. And me as a kid, a 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid, I'm going, well, this is great. All my classes are bullshit. I can just party all the time. I can have fun. You're not thinking in terms of like, dude, how much debt are you racking up? Are you progressing anywhere closer to an actual career that you're gonna be able to pay this off? These aren't things that adolescents are thinking about. And the banks know that. And the colleges know that. So the colleges know that when the government is stipending, or whatever the word is, subsidizing these loans, so that like basically anyone can get a student loan for any amount of money essentially, and blah, 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 blah. Then like the colleges go, yeah, we got a fucking gold mine here. We don't have to make college affordable to a working 18-year-old anymore, because that was how the prices were set before they had unlimited access to unlimited money. Right. So now we're going to raise the tuition. And so now, yeah, it's kind of like the same way you look at healthcare. I mean, you talk about like how like why is it that just like any other type of thing, you can't walk into a doctor's office and get like, if you get like a routine operation or a routine type of like a procedure or a checkup, if you actually look, most people just have health insurance, just they pay the deductible and the rest. If you actually looked at how much these hospitals are charging for that shit, it's to the point where you literally cannot pay for that shit out of pocket unless you're a rich person, like a wealthy person, to the point where the only way to actually function in the healthcare market is to have insurance, and health insurance is no longer a catastrophe thing like it is for car insurance. Like I don't go to
well, and that's like they also have those things that they were doing with like the insurance companies too, to like inflate the prices on medical procedures, so that they can be like, but with your insurance we're getting you a discount. So it's like it's never cutting into the actual price of anything. So the insurance company gets more money and the hospital gets more money. But there are things that you can look up, TikTok hacks.
Nice.
And there are people that are like, yeah, you can also like, there's websites to look up like what do the procedures actually cost, and if you like confront the hospital with the bill, they'll be like, okay.
It's nuts.
But it's crazy that you have to do that. I will say also, I really have to pee.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we don't have the accommodations
I
for
know.
that. I'm sorry about that.
So I'm going to say,
it's all good. I apologize. If we had a bathroom, we could have tapped into the mysteries of the universe.
Mysteries
We'll have to wait another week, as it always does. 309 weeks straight of next week. We'll get there. We'll figure it out next week.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for coming on, Liz Norman.
Yeah, at Elizabeth Danger Norman on Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you want me to give out any of your other social media?
No, that's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll keep the plugs quick, folks. Busy month. At Jimmy Selesky across the board. I will be at Perennial this Tuesday, every Tuesday at Perennial, except for next Tuesday. Don't count that though. It's every Tuesday at Perennial. Oh, and the Tuesday after that, I won't be there for the 4th of July. But other than this coming next Tuesday and that Tuesday, I'm there every Tuesday. 5 to 8:30 in Towson. That's Tuesday, June 20th. I will be at White Oak Tavern in Ellicott City. If you're a Pokemon trainer, this is your time. White Oak Tavern, 8 to 11, Friday, June 23rd. Saturday, June 24th, I will be at the illustrious Brews and Barrels in Gaithersburg, Maryland at the Kentlands. That's 7 to 10. Not that I have to tell you this, but I will be doing a private party in Bel Air earlier that day. So that's quite the hike. Opposite sides of the state.
They're going to fix the boat.
They're going to fix the boat. I can see it. I'm doing an underwater fucking extravaganza. But yeah, at Sophomore MD, at Eric Glazer, and you already know, why do I even have to say it? At LFTS Podcast.
On everything.
You already know. And as always, till next week.
Peace.